I get it, you're staring at a wall of specs and wondering if you're about to drop a few $100s on a machine that will sit idle most weeks, or worse, end up being a compromise you'll regret. You've probably spent an hour watching how-to videos, scrolling through forums, and trying to picture yourself turning a piece of steel or aluminum on a bench lathe that actually fits your garage. The fear of buying the wrong tool is real, especially when you're balancing a hobby budget against the desire for a machine that can actually handle the projects you've been planning. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's talk about the Jet GH1340 gearhead lathe with the Acu Rite 203 and taper attachment kit. It's not a hobby shop novelty, it's marketed as a workhorse for small to medium projects, from turning brass bushings for a restoration to grinding out a custom spindle for a 3D printer. The first question you should ask yourself is, do you need a lathe that can reliably hold a 6-inch 3-jaw chuck and also give you an 8-inch 4-jaw chuck when the job calls for that extra flexibility? If the answer is yes, you're already in the right ballpark for this machine. Who should buy it? Think of anyone who already has a basic set of tools and now wants to step up from a mini lathe or a converted drill press to something that can handle a broader range of materials without constantly swapping out accessories. A hobby machinist who cuts automotive brackets, a small shop owner who produces a few custom parts each month, or a serious DIYer who wants to machine small shafts for robotics projects will find the 13-inch swing and 40-inch bed length a comfortable middle ground. The gearhead provides smooth, consistent speeds without the belt-changing hassle you'd face on a variable speed motor, which translates to less downtime when you're shifting between aluminum and steel. Who should skip it? If your work is limited to occasional wood turning, or you only ever need to turn a handful of 1-inch diameter rods for decorative purposes, you'll likely be overpaying. Likewise, anyone who expects to produce large production runs of identical parts will find the 1340 footprint limiting. The bed length caps you at around 40-inch workpieces, and the swing is capped at 13 inches, so you'll quickly hit a ceiling on part size. Finally, if you're looking for a fully CNC platform, this lathe is purely manual, and while the taper attachment adds some precision, you'll still be doing the calculations and adjustments by hand. Let's get into the practical strengths that matter when the lathe finally lands on your bench. The inclusion of both a 6-inch 3-jaw chuck and an 8-inch 4-jaw chuck right out of the box is a real time saver. I've seen beginners struggle for weeks trying to source a compatible 4-jaw chuck that fits their lathe spindle, only to discover the thread pitch doesn't match. Here, you get both, so you can start with simple work, say, turning an inch aluminum rod for a bike repair, then switch to the 4-jaw when you need to grip irregularly shaped parts like a reclaimed brass gear. The front removable chip tray is another subtle but valuable feature. After a session of milling off a few millimeters of material on a steel dowel, you can pull the tray out, sweep the chips into a shop vac, and get back to work without a messy cleanup that would otherwise eat into your workflow. The full-length splash guard paired with a standard halogen work light does more than just look professional. In real-world use, the guard keeps coolant spray or oil from splattering onto nearby tools and electronics, a common annoyance when you're doing light finishing passes on a copper tube. The integrated halogen light, while not a high-end LED, provides enough illumination to see the cutting edge without having to angle a separate shop lamp. That means fewer shadows on the workpiece and a lower chance of missing a chatter that could ruin a precision fit. Now for the trade-offs. The gearhead is smooth, but it isn't a variable speed drive. You get a set of predefined speeds that you select via a gearbox. If you frequently need speeds that sit between those preset ratios, you'll find yourself either compromising on surface finish or having to manually adjust feed rates to compensate. For most hobbyists, the standard speed range is sufficient, but a professional fabricator who needs tight tolerances on every material might feel restricted. The Acu Rite 203 taper attachment kit adds a nice layer of capability, letting you cut tapers without a separate collet or a CNC controller. However, setting up the taper requires a decent amount of patience. You have to calculate the taper angle, adjust the attachment, and then verify with a test piece. It's not a turn-and-go feature, so if you're after plug-and-play simplicity for taper work, You may need an additional digital readout or a more advanced attachment. Another point that surfaces once you start using the machine regularly is the weight and footprint. The lathe sits on a sturdy cast iron base, which is great for